Qur'an chapter 67, Surah Al-Mulk by Sayyid Qutb. Translation by Muhammad Al-Amrani. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful. Blessed is he in whose hand rests dominion, and over all things he holds absolute power. He who fashioned life and death to test you and see which among you is best in deeds, he the mighty, the oft forgiving. He who shaped the heavens, seven in layered perfection, you see no flaw in the creation of the All-Merciful. So turn your gaze, can you find any rift? Then look again and yet again, your sight will return to you humbled, weary in its search. And we have adorned the lowest heaven with lamps, and made them missiles against the devils, and for them we have prepared the torment of the blazing fire. As for those who deny their sustainer, theirs is the punishment of hell. What a wretched destination! When they are cast into it, they will hear its terrible roar as it boils over, almost bursting with fury. Every time a group is thrown inside, its keepers will ask them, "Did no warner come to you?" They will say, "Indeed, a warner came to us, but we denied and said, 'God has not sent down anything, you are in great error.' And they will say, 'If only we had listened or reasoned, we would not be among the companions of the blaze.' So they will confess their sin, but far removed are the companions of the blaze. Indeed, for those who fear their sustainer unseen, there is forgiveness and a great reward. And whether you conceal your words or speak them openly, he knows what is within the hearts. Does he not know who he created? And he is the subtle, the all-aware. He it is who made the earth gentle beneath your feet, so walk its paths and eat of his provision, and to him will be the return. Do you feel secure that he who is in the heavens will not cause the earth to swallow you, and it quakes beneath you? Or do you feel secure that he who is in the heavens will not send against you a storm of stones? Then you will know how my warning is, and indeed those before them denied, and how terrible was my rejection of them. Do they not see the birds above them spreading their wings and folding them? None holds them aloft except the most merciful. Truly, he is watchful over all things. Who is there that could be an army to aid you besides the most merciful? Indeed, the disbelievers are in utter delusion. Who is there to provide for you if he withholds his provision? Yet they persist in pride and rebellion. Is the one who walks with his face grovelling in the dust more rightly guided, or the one who walks upright on a straight path? Say, he it is who brought you into being, and made for you hearing, sight, and hearts. Yet little do you give thanks. Say, he it is who spread you across the earth, and to him you will be gathered. And they say, when will this promise be fulfilled if you are truthful? Say, the knowledge is only with God, and I am but a clear warner. But when they see it approaching, the faces of those who disbelieved will be stricken with misery, and it will be said, "This is what you were calling for." Say, have you considered whether God destroys me and those with me, or has mercy on us? Who will protect the disbelievers from a painful punishment? Say, he is the most merciful. In him we believe, and in him we put our trust. Soon you will know who is in clear error. Say, have you considered if your water were to sink deep into the earth, Who then could bring you flowing water? This section is entirely composed of Meccan revelations, just as the previous section was entirely from the Medinan revelations. Each has its own distinct character and unique flavor. Some of the beginnings of the surahs in this part belong to the earliest revelations, such as the opening verses of Surah Al-Mudaththir and Surah Al-Muzammil. Likewise, there are surahs here that may have been revealed around 3 years after the prophethood, like Surah Al-Kalam, and others like Surah Al-Jinn, revealed approximately 10 years later, during the Prophet's return from Ta'if, after being mistreated by the tribe of Thaqif. During that difficult journey, God sent to him a group of jinn who listened as he recited the Qur'an, a moment beautifully captured in Surah Al-Jinn, found in this section. This journey occurred shortly after the deaths of Khadija and Abu Talib, about a year or two before the Hijrah. However, some narrations, more widely accepted, suggest that the surah was revealed in the early years of the mission. The Meccan Qur'an primarily addresses the foundation of faith, faith in God, in revelation, and in the hereafter. It crafts a vision of existence that springs from this faith, a vision that binds creation to its creator. It defines the creator in a way that makes his presence alive in the heart, inspiring a reverence appropriate for a servant standing before his sustainer. It instills in the believer the values and standards by which to measure all things, events, people, and the world itself. We have seen examples of this in the previous Meccan surahs, and we will encounter more in this section. The Medinan Qur'an, on the other hand, primarily deals with the application of that faith, that worldview, and those values in the practical affairs of life. It calls upon hearts to bear the responsibility of faith and the divine law in the struggles of life, urging souls to rise to the challenges both within the conscience and in the outward world. We have witnessed examples of this in the Medinan surahs we've covered, including those in the previous section. The first surah in this section, Surah Tabarak, lays the foundation for a new understanding of existence and its relationship to the creator of all that exists. It offers a broad and encompassing perspective that stretches beyond the narrow confines of earthly life and the limited scope of this world. It extends to the vast realms of the heavens, to the life of the hereafter, and to creatures other than humans, like the jinn and the birds, to otherworldly beings like the guardians of hell, and to realms of the unseen that transcend the physical world. These realms engage the hearts and minds of people so that they are not consumed by the transient visible life of this world. This surah stirs the soul, shaking the hardened, stagnant images and remnants of the ignorant past, and it opens windows here and there, dusting off the cobwebs of neglect. It releases the senses, the intellect and insight, sending them out to explore the horizons of the universe, the depths of the self, the layers of the atmosphere, the channels of water, and the mysteries of the unseen. Through this journey, one encounters the creative hand of God and feels the pulse of existence emanating from his power. One returns from this journey with the awareness that the matter is far greater, that the field is far wider, and that the heart has been lifted from the earth, vast as it is, to the heavens. From the outward signs one is led to inner truths. From the stillness of ignorance one is drawn into the movement of life, life in its essence, life in its creatures, and life in its unfolding destiny. Death and life, two recurring realities, familiar to all. But this surah breathes into them a new movement of contemplation, stirring the soul to look beyond these twin ends, to the will of God and his subtle trials, to his wisdom and design. For he created death and life to test you, to see which of you is best indeed, and he is the Almighty, the Forgiving. And the heavens, a constant creation suspended before the heedless eye, which rarely perceives the hand that crafted them, nor the perfection they embody. Yet this surah awakens the heart to reflect deeply upon this beauty and perfection, and the boundless purpose that lies beyond. He who created 7 heavens in perfect harmony. You see no flaw in the creation of the most compassionate. Look again, do you see any cracks? Then look once more, and yet again your vision will return to you, humbled and weary. And we have adorned the lowest heaven with radiant lamps, and made them missiles against the devils. In the ignorance of disbelief, this worldly life appears as the ultimate goal, the final destination. But this surah pulls back the veil, revealing another realm, one prepared for devils and for the disbelievers, a realm teeming with movement and vigilance, poised for retribution. We have prepared for them the blazing fire, and for those who deny their sustainer is the torment of hell. What an evil destination! When they are cast into it, they will hear its dreadful roar as it boils over. It almost bursts with rage. Every time a group is thrown in, its keepers will ask them, "Did no warner come to you?" They will say, "Indeed a warner did come to us, but we denied him, saying, 'God has revealed nothing, you are in great error.'" And they will say, "If only we had listened or used reason, we would not be among the companions of the blaze." And they will confess their sin, so away with the companions of the blaze. In the age of ignorance, souls rarely transcend the outward appearance of life, nor do they give thought to the unseen or its hidden realities. They are engrossed in worldly life, imprisoned within the confines of this seemingly stable and secure earth. But this surah pulls their hearts and eyes toward the unseen, to the heavens, to the power they have not seen, yet which moves the heavens and the earth at will, whenever and however it chooses. It shakes their complacency, rattling the very ground beneath their feet, and stirs the heavens above. Indeed, for those who fear their sustainer, in the unseen is forgiveness and a great reward. And whether you conceal your words or proclaim them, he knows what is in your hearts. Does he who created not know? He is the subtle, the all-aware. He it is who made the earth subdued for you, so walk in its pathways and eat of his provision, and to him is the final return. Do you feel secure that he who is in the heavens will not cause the earth to swallow you, and suddenly it quakes? Or do you feel secure that he who is in the heavens will not send against you a storm of stones? Then you will know how my warning is. As for the birds, they are creatures seen frequently, yet their miraculous nature goes unnoticed. But the surah seizes their vision and hearts, urging them to ponder deeply upon God's power, who fashioned and determined all things. Do they not see the birds above them, spreading and folding their wings? None holds them aloft except the most compassionate. Truly, he is all-seeing of everything. But the surah seizes their vision and hearts, urging them to ponder deeply upon God's power, who fashioned and determined all things. And though they dwell in their homes, feeling safe in their place, secure in their surroundings, their tranquility is the tranquility of the heedless, heedless of God's might and decree. Yet the surah shakes them from this spiritual slumber, as it has shaken the earth beneath them and stirred the air around them. It jolts them with the reality of God's overpowering authority, which they have failed to consider. Or who is it that could be an army for you to help you, apart from the most compassionate? The disbelievers are in nothing but delusion, and the provision they gather with their hands, to them it seems so near, its cause is clear. But the surah extends their vision far beyond the sky, beyond the causes they think they know. Or who is it that will provide for you if he withholds his provision? But they persist in arrogance and aversion. They wander aimlessly in their delusion, thinking they are guided while they are astray. The surah paints for them the true picture of their state and the state of those truly guided, in vivid, stirring imagery. Is he who walks prone on his face better guided, or he who walks upright on a straight path? And they do not benefit from the faculties God has granted them, their hearing, their sight, and their hearts. They do not see beyond the surface of this present world to contemplate the deeper purpose behind it. But the surah reminds them of God's grace in granting them these faculties and directs them to use these gifts to illuminate the future that lies beyond the present and to reflect on the purpose behind their beginning. Say, it is he who brought you into being and gave you hearing, sight, and hearts, yet little do you give thanks. Say, it is he who spread you out on the earth, and to him you shall be gathered. And they deny the resurrection and the gathering, asking mockingly about its time. But the surah presents it to them as a near and imminent reality that will distress them. And they say, when will this promise come to pass if you are truthful? Say, the knowledge of it is with God alone, and I am only a clear warner. But when they see it drawing near, the faces of those who disbelieve will be distressed, and it will be said, this is what you were calling for. But the surah reminds them that the fate of the believers, whether they survive or perish, does not change the torment awaiting the disbelievers for their rejection and lies. They should ponder their own condition before that fateful day arrives. Say, have you considered, if God should destroy me and those with me or have mercy upon us, who will protect the disbelievers from a painful punishment? Say, he is the most compassionate. In him we believe and upon him we rely. And soon you will know who is in manifest error. And in its final warning, the surah reminds them of the water that sustains their life, water that flows only by God's command, yet they deny him. Say, have you considered if your water were to sink into the ground, who then could bring you flowing water? And the key to the surah, its axis around which all its motions revolve, lies in its majestic opening verse. Blessed is he in whose hand is all dominion, and he is over all things capable. The surah's truths unfold without pause, a continuous stream of meanings that explain the encompassing reality of that majestic opening. Dividing the surah into sections becomes a challenge, for it is best understood as one fluid narrative of reflection. Blessed is he in whose hand is all dominion, and he has power over all things. This opening verse conveys the boundless blessings of God, overflowing with magnificence and grandeur. The mention of dominion beside his blessing suggests that this vast dominion is imbued with his grace, a majesty that fills the universe after being glorified in his divine essence. This proclamation echoes across the cosmos, resonating within the heart of every created being. From the concealed book, it emerges into the known world, bearing the mark of divine speech. Blessed is he in whose hand is all dominion, for he is its true master, its supreme sovereign, holding its reins, governing it as he wills. This truth, once it settles in the heart, guides one's purpose and destination. It liberates the soul from turning to, relying upon, or seeking from any but the one who holds all dominion and control, freeing the soul from servitude to anyone but the one sustainer, the unique sovereign, and he has power over all things. Nothing escapes his grasp, nor can anything thwart his will. He creates as he pleases, does as he wills, and nothing limits his authority. When this truth settles in the heart, it frees one's understanding of God's will from the constraints of human perception, reason, or imagination. God's power transcends all that humans can conceive. The limitations placed on human perception due to their finite nature often trap them in familiar patterns, unable to grasp the vast possibilities of change and transformation. But this truth frees the heart from these confines, allowing it to anticipate anything from God's power without restriction, trusting his omnipotence without limitation. He who created death and life to test you as to which of you is best indeed, and he is the mighty, the forgiving, and from the effects of his absolute mastery over dominion and his limitless power, he created death and life. Death encompasses both the state before life and the inevitable end after it, while life includes both this worldly existence and the life to come. All of this is his creation, as this verse establishes, inviting humans to reflect on the profound purpose behind it. Life and death are not random, nor are they without purpose. Rather, they are a trial, a test to reveal what was already known to God of human conduct, their worthiness for reward based on their deeds. To test which of you is best indeed. This truth, when internalized, keeps the soul ever watchful, ever mindful, careful about even the smallest intention and deed. It does not allow for heedlessness or distraction, nor does it let one feel secure or at ease. Thus the verse continues, and he is the mighty, the forgiving, providing reassurance to the heart that fears God and is conscious of him. God is indeed mighty, but he is also forgiving. If the heart remains alert and mindful, aware of this test, it can take solace in God's boundless forgiveness and mercy. In Islam's view of reality, God does not pursue people relentlessly, nor does he desire to make their lives difficult or punish them. Rather, he wants them to be aware of the purpose of their existence, to rise to the level of their true potential, and to fulfill the honor he bestowed upon them by breathing into them of his spirit and preferring them over much of his creation. Once they achieve this, there awaits for them a mercy that overflows, immense aid, and abundant forgiveness. The Surah connects this truth with the universe in its grandest manifestations, and it ties it, on the other hand, to the reality of the hereafter, where ultimate recompense follows the trial of life and death. He who created 7 heavens in harmony. You see no flaw in the creation of the merciful, so return your gaze. Do you see any rift? Then return your gaze twice again, and your vision will return to you humbled and fatigued. Indeed, we have adorned the nearest heaven with lamps, and we have made them missiles for the devils, and we have prepared for them the punishment of the blaze. And for those who disbelieve in their sustainer is the punishment of hell, and wretched is the destination. When they are thrown into it, they will hear its dreadful roaring as it boils over. It almost bursts with rage. Every time a group is thrown into it, its keepers will ask them, "Did there not come to you a warner?" They will say, "Yes, a warner came to us, but we denied and said, 'God has not sent down anything, you are in great error.' And they will say, 'If only we had listened or reasoned, we would not be among the companions of the blaze.' So they will confess their sin, but far away will be the companions of the blaze." All these verses echo the meaning of the opening verse, revealing the signs of God's dominion, power and creation, culminating in his ability to bring death and life, and his capacity for judgment and reward. The heavens are seven, layered above each other, yet the precise nature of this structure is not for us to define through changing scientific theories, which evolve with every advancement in observation. We know, as the verse informs us, that there are seven heavens layered in perfect harmony. The Qur'an directs attention to the flawless creation of God, challenging us to find any imperfection. You see no flaw in the creation of the merciful. There is no defect, no inconsistency, no disturbance. So return your gaze, look again with deeper attention. Do you see any rift? Have you found a crack, a flaw, or an imbalance? Then return your gaze twice again, for perhaps you missed something the first time. Your vision will return to you humbled and fatigued. The Qur'an's challenge is meant to awaken a deep, attentive gaze upon the heavens and all of God's creation. It seeks to provoke a contemplation filled with wonder, awe, and humility, as one becomes overwhelmed by the precision, beauty, and vastness of God's work. This reflection, kindled by the verses, lifts the soul into a festival of divine beauty and splendor, a vision that the eye, heart, and mind can never fully exhaust. Anyone who knows something of the nature and order of this vast universe, as modern science has revealed glimpses of it, cannot help but be filled with awe and wonder. Yet the grandeur of the universe does not depend on such knowledge. It is among the blessings of God that he has instilled within the human heart the capacity to resonate with the beauty of creation simply through sight and contemplation. The heart can directly receive the rhythms of this vast, magnificent cosmos when it opens itself to reflection. It responds to the living presence of the universe as one living being to another, long before the intellect, with its instruments and calculations, ever comprehends its immense marvels. Thus, the Qur'an calls upon humanity to gaze upon this universe, to ponder its scenes and its wonders. The Qur'an addresses all people in every time and place. It speaks to the forest dweller and the desert wanderer, just as it speaks to the city dweller and the seafarer. It speaks to the unlettered one who has never read or written, just as it speaks to the astronomer, the physicist, and the philosopher. Each of these, in their own way, finds in the Qur'an that which connects them to this universe, stirring their hearts to reflection, response, and joy. The beauty and the design of this universe is as intentional as its perfection. In truth, beauty and perfection are but two facets of the same reality. For when perfection reaches its zenith, it becomes beauty. Hence, the Qur'an draws attention not only to the perfection of the heavens, but also to their beauty. And we adorn the lowest heaven with lamps. What is this lowest heaven? Perhaps it is the sky closest to the earth, the one visible to those addressed by the Qur'an. And perhaps the lamps mentioned here are the stars and planets, those brilliant celestial bodies that we see when we gaze upon the heavens. This aligns with the command to observe the sky, for the early listeners had only their eyes to witness the luminous orbs adorning the heavens. The sight of stars in the night sky is undeniably beautiful, a beauty that captivates the heart. It is a beauty that continually renews itself, shifting with the passage of time. It differs from dawn to dusk, from sunrise to sunset, from a moonlit night to a night wrapped in darkness. It transforms from a clear sky to one veiled in mist or clouds, and even within a single hour, or from one vantage point to another, its beauty unfolds in endless variations. All of it, every part, is a spectacle that seizes the heart and mind. That solitary star, twinkling far away like a radiant eye, gleaming with affection and invitation, and those two stars standing apart, as if they have escaped the crowd to whisper secrets to each other. Then there are those scattered clusters of stars, huddled together here and there, as though they are gathered in joyous celebration, revelling in the festival of the heavens. They come together and drift apart like companions of the night at a celestial gathering. And what of the moon? One night it is a dreamy, gentle wanderer. Another night it beams with pride and brilliance. Sometimes it appears broken and subdued. At other times it is a newborn, blossoming with life. And yet other times it is a fading elder, inching toward oblivion. And the vast expanse of the sky itself, an endless horizon that the eyes cannot tire of, nor the sight ever fully reach its bounds. This is beauty, a beauty that one can live and immerse oneself in, but that no words or expressions can fully capture. The Qur'an directs the soul to the beauty of the heavens and to the beauty of all creation, because perceiving the beauty of existence is the most direct and profound way to perceive the beauty of the Creator himself. This perception lifts the human soul to the highest plane it can reach, for it is in these moments that one becomes prepared for the eternal life, a life in a boundless, beautiful realm, free of the imperfections of earthly existence. Indeed, the most blessed moments of the human heart are those in which it receives the beauty of God's creation, for in those moments it is being prepared to behold the beauty of the Creator himself. The Qur'an also reminds us that these luminous lamps that adorn the lowest heaven serve another purpose, and we made them missiles for the devils. In matters of the unseen, about which God has granted us glimpses, we refrain from adding more than what has been revealed. We stop where the Quranic text stops, for it is sufficient in itself to affirm what it addresses. We believe that there exists a creation known as devils, whose attributes are mentioned in the Qur'an and which have been alluded to previously in these reflections. We add nothing more to what has been said. We believe that God has made these lamps that adorn the lowest heaven as missiles against the devils, in the form of meteors, as mentioned in another chapter, and we made them protection from every rebellious devil, except one who snatches a fragment, but is pursued by a piercing flame. How does this happen? What is its nature, its form, its scale? God has told us nothing more, and we have no other source we are permitted to consult in such matters. Let us know only this and believe in its occurrence, for this is the purpose. If God had known any benefit in further explanation or detail, he would have clarified it. Why then should we seek what God has not deemed beneficial for us to know, especially in such a matter as the casting of stones against the devils? The verse continues, describing what God has prepared for the devils beyond these missiles, and we have prepared for them the torment of the blazing fire. Thus, the stones in this world and the torment of the blazing fire in the hereafter are for the devils. Perhaps the mention of what has been prepared for the devils in both this world and the next is connected to the mention of the heavens, followed by the mention of those who disbelieve. The link between devils and those who disbelieve is an evident one. So when the Qur'an speaks of the lamps of the heavens, it also mentions their use as missiles against the devils. And when it speaks of the torment prepared for the devils, it then mentions the fate of those who follow these devils in disbelief. And for those who disbelieve in their sustainer is the punishment of hell, and what an evil destination! The scene of hell is then painted in vivid colours as it welcomes those who disbelieve with fury and intense wrath. When they are cast into it, they will hear its roaring as it boils, as though it would burst with rage. Hell here is depicted as a living, seething creature, brimming with fury. Its breath rises in gasps and boils over with rage. Its very being is filled with such anger that it seems ready to tear itself apart from within. Hell embodies a hatred so intense that it seethes and boils, harbouring an enmity and loathing toward those who disbelieve, a loathing that swells to the point of fury. On the surface, this expression might appear to be a mere metaphor for the state of hell. Yet, as we sense, it reflects a profound reality. Every creation of God is alive, possessing its own soul and spirit. Every creation knows its sustainer and glorifies his praises, astonished by the human who dares to deny his creator. These creations are filled with anger at such an abhorrent act of disbelief, which their very nature rejects and their spirits detest. This truth is affirmed in various places in the Qur'an, where it becomes clear that every part of existence acknowledges its creator. The Qur'an states explicitly, "The seven heavens and the earth, and whatever is in them, glorify him. And there is not a thing except that it exalts God by his praise, but you do not understand their way of exalting." And elsewhere, "O mountains, echo God's praises with him, and you birds." These are straightforward expressions, leaving no room for interpretation. In another verse, "Then he directed himself to the heaven while it was smoke, and said to it and to the earth, 'Come into being,' willingly or unwillingly. They said, 'We come willingly.'" One might argue that this is a metaphor for the submission of the heavens and the earth to the laws of God. But such interpretation is unnecessary, for the direct, literal meaning is both clear and sufficient. The Qur'an also speaks of hell's rage, just as it describes the astonishment and anger of creation at the act of associating partners with God. "You have certainly done an atrocious thing. The heavens almost rupture therefrom, and the earth splits open, and the mountains collapse in devastation that they attribute to the most merciful a child." All these verses point to a deeper truth, that the entire universe believes in its creator, glorifying him in praise. It recoils in horror when it witnesses mankind's deviation into disbelief, veering away from the harmony of existence. The whole of creation seems poised to attack the disbelieving human in fury, like one who sees a dear friend or beloved insulted and burns with rage, ready to burst from the intensity of their anger. Such is the state of hell as it boils and nearly tears itself apart in fury. This same sentiment can be observed in the keepers of hell. Every time a group is cast into it, its keepers will ask them, "Did no warner come to you?" It is clear that this question, in this context, is one of reproach and humiliation. The keepers of hell partake in its fury and wrath, just as they share in its torment. There is no sting more painful for the anguished and despairing than the sharp taunt of those who preside over their suffering. The answer comes in shame and humility, an acknowledgement of their foolishness and heedlessness after all their arrogance, denial, and accusations of the messengers as being misguided. They said, "Indeed, a warner did come to us, but we denied him and said, 'God has sent nothing down, you are in great error.' And they said, 'Had we only listened or used our reason, we would not be among the companions of the blazing fire.' For those who truly listen and reflect would never lead themselves to such a wretched end, nor would they deny as those miserable ones did. They would not so hastily accuse the messengers of being astray with such brazen arrogance without a shred of evidence to support their rejection. Yet they boldly proclaimed, "God has sent nothing down, you are in great error." And so they will confess their sin. Away with the companions of the blazing fire. Crushed here means cast far away, a curse upon them from God after their admission of guilt. In that moment they had denied and refused to believe would ever come. And a curse from God is a final decree. They are banished from his mercy with no hope for pardon, no escape from the torment. They are the companions of the blazing fire, bound to it for eternity. What a company, and what a fate! This torment of the blazing fire, in hell that breathes with fury and boils over, is indeed a terrible and overwhelming punishment, and God wrongs no one. We understand, as God knows best, that the soul which denies its sustainer, despite having been endowed with the innate truth of faith, is a soul emptied of all goodness, stripped of every virtue that gives meaning to existence. It becomes like the stone that fuels hell's flames, having descended to such degradation and collapse that its rightful place is in this fire, from which there is neither escape nor salvation. A soul that rejects God on earth continues to sink day by day until it becomes a hideous and distorted form, an abominable, ghastly image, unmatched in the universe for its ugliness and deformity. Everything in existence has a spirit that believes, everything exalts the praises of its sustainer, everything possesses this inherent goodness and bond to the core of existence, except these wandering, rebellious souls, severed from the ties of creation, wicked and hardened, monstrous in their estrangement. What place remains for them in the cosmos when they are cut off from everything in existence? They end up in hell, the place of fury and destruction, where all meaning, all truth and all honour are annihilated. For those souls themselves have been emptied of all meaning, truth and honour. In the familiar rhythm of the Qur'an, two contrasting scenes of the Day of Judgment are often presented. Here, alongside the fate of the disbelievers, we are shown the state of the believers, completing the meaning of the earlier verse, that he may test you as to which of you is best indeed, by mentioning the recompense after the trial. Indeed, those who fear their sustainer unseen will have forgiveness and a great reward. The unseen here encompasses both their awe of their sustainer, whom they have not seen, and their consciousness of him, even when they are hidden from the eyes of others. Both meanings are profound, reflecting a pure heart and deep awareness, deserving of the immense reward mentioned, forgiveness and a great recompense. The heart's connection with God in secret and unseen moments, in the realm beyond what the eyes perceive, is the measure of sensitivity in the human soul and the guarantee of life for the conscience. As the renowned scholar Abu Bakr al-Bazar narrated in his Musnad, Anas reported that the people said, "O Messenger of God, when we are with you, we are in one state, but when we leave you, we are in another." The Prophet asked, "How do you find yourselves with regard to your sustainer?" They replied, "God is our sustainer in both secret and public." The Prophet said, "That is not hypocrisy." The bond with God is the essence. Once it is firmly rooted in the heart, one is a true and connected believer. This verse also connects what came before with what follows, affirming God's knowledge of both the hidden and the manifest as he challenges humankind. For he is the one who created their souls and knows all their innermost depths, where he himself placed the secrets that lie within. Whether you speak in whispers or proclaim aloud, he knows well what is in the hearts. Does he who created not know? And he is the subtle, the all-aware. Conceal your words or shout them aloud, it matters not, for both are laid bare before God's perfect knowledge. Indeed, he knows what is even more hidden than words or whispers. He is fully aware of what lies within the hearts, those secrets that never leave the breast. For it is he who created those hearts just as he created the breast itself. Does he who created not know? How could he not when he is the creator, and he is the gentle, the all-knowing? His knowledge penetrates the finest details and the most hidden mysteries. How strange it is then that human beings should imagine they can hide from God with a gesture, a whisper, or an intention buried deep within. It becomes almost laughable, for the very conscience in which they conceal their intentions is a creation of God, and he knows every path and every hidden chamber within it. Even their intentions are from his creation, and he knows where they lie. What then can they hide? And where can they seek to conceal themselves? The Qur'an seeks to instill this truth deep within the soul. For once it is firmly rooted, it fosters a correct understanding of all matters. It awakens within the heart a constant awareness, a sense of vigilance and piety, upon which the believer's responsibilities on this earth are built. The trust of faith, the trust of justice, and the trust of sincerity in both action and intention. These can only be realized when the heart is fully certain that it and all the secrets and intentions it harbors are from God's creation and are fully known to him. He is the subtle, the all-aware. At this point, the believer becomes just as cautious about his hidden intentions and secret thoughts as he is about his visible actions and spoken words. For he knows he is dealing with God, who knows both the hidden and the manifest. God, who created the hearts and therefore knows what lies within them. Then the Quranic discourse shifts from the soul that God created to the earth, which he has fashioned for mankind, made subservient to them and filled with the means of sustenance. It is he who has made the earth manageable for you, so walk in its paths and eat of his provision, and to him is the return. People, accustomed to their long sojourn on this earth, often forget God's blessing in making it subservient to them, allowing them to live easily upon it, to traverse its expanses, to cultivate its soil, draw from its waters, breathe its air, and extract its treasures and provisions. The Qur'an reminds them of this great blessing, drawing attention to it in language that each generation can understand, according to the extent of their knowledge about this docile earth. To the early audience of the Qur'an, the image of the earth being subdued was understood in terms of walking upon it, travelling by foot, or riding animals sailing the seas, cultivating and harvesting crops, and dwelling upon it with access to its air, water and soil. These were broad meanings that knowledge has since elaborated upon, expanding the scope of the Quranic text in human understanding. Science tells us more today about this manageable earth. The term subservient, which is typically used for a domesticated animal, is no accident when applied to the earth. For this planet that we see as fixed and stable is, in reality, in constant motion, like a galloping steed. Yet despite its incredible speed, the earth remains gentle and accommodating, never tossing its rider from its back, never stumbling or shaking them, never jarring or exhausting them like an unbroken mount. Indeed, it is a gentle beast, providing milk just as it offers its docility. This planet we ride spins on its axis at a speed of 1,000 miles per hour, while at the same time it orbits the Sun at a velocity of around 65,000 miles per hour. Meanwhile, the Sun, along with the entire solar system, rushes through space at 20,000 miles per hour, moving toward the constellation Orion. And yet, despite all this dizzying motion, human beings remain safe and secure upon its surface, their limbs intact, their bodies unscathed, their minds undisturbed, never losing their balance or being cast down from this gentle steed. Each of these three movements has a purpose. We already understand the effects of two of them on human life, indeed on all life upon this earth. The earth's rotation creates night and day. Were night to be eternal, all life would freeze from the cold. Were day to be everlasting, all life would burn from the heat. Its orbit around the sun brings about the seasons. If only one season reigned forever, life as we know it would cease to exist in its divinely intended form. As for the third movement, its purpose has yet to be revealed, but surely it is linked to the grand harmony of the cosmos. This subservient Earth, with all its colossal movements happening at once, remains perfectly aligned as it travels through space, thanks to the tilt of its axis at precisely 23.5 degrees. It is this tilt that creates the 4 seasons as the Earth orbits the Sun. If this angle were to shift during the journey, the seasons would be disrupted, and with them, the entire cycle of life upon this earth. And it is God who made the earth tame and gentle for mankind, creating within it a gravitational pull that anchors them as it journeys through its vast motions. He also established an atmospheric pressure that allows for easy movement upon its surface. Had that pressure been heavier, man would find walking or even breathing impossible, crushed by its weight or hindered by its force. And if it had been lighter, his steps would falter or his body would burst under the strain of his own internal pressure, as happens to those who ascend to the heights of the atmosphere without proper protection from the surrounding air. God made the earth gentle by smoothing its surface and creating a soft, fertile layer of soil. For if it had remained a solid, unyielding rock, as science imagines it might have been after cooling and hardening, it would be impossible to walk upon, and nothing could grow. But through the processes of wind, rain, and other natural elements, God broke down these hard rocks, crafting a rich and life-giving soil. From it, he brought forth the plants and sustenance that nourish those who ride this gentle steed. He also made the earth tame by ensuring that the air surrounding it contains the exact elements necessary for life in the perfect proportions. If those ratios were to shift even slightly, life would cease. The air contains approximately 21% oxygen, 78% nitrogen, and a trace of carbon dioxide, 3 parts in 10,000, along with other elements. These precise measurements are what allow life to flourish upon this earth. And there are thousands of other finely tuned conditions that make life possible. The size of the earth, the size and distance of the sun and moon, the earth's distance from these celestial bodies, the temperature of the sun, the thickness of the earth's crust, the speed at which it spins, the tilt of its axis, the balance of water and land, the density of the atmosphere, and so much more. These carefully measured factors are what make the earth gentle, what provide sustenance, and what allow life, especially human life, to thrive. The Quranic text points to these truths, urging every person in every generation to grasp them to the extent of their knowledge and observation. It seeks to awaken in them the awareness of God's hand, the hand that holds dominion over all things, guiding and sustaining both them and the world around them. Without his constant protection, this entire universe would collapse, taking all life with it. When a person's heart awakens to this profound truth, the merciful and compassionate Creator grants them permission to walk upon this earth and partake of his provisions, so walk in its high places and eat of his provision. The high places refer to the elevated parts of the earth, its mountains and hills, but if permission is granted to walk there, it is surely granted to walk in the plains and valleys as well. When permission is given for the rugged heights, it is certainly granted for the gentle lands. all the sustenance found on earth is of God's creation and his dominion. And the concept of sustenance is far broader than what people commonly imagine. It is not just the wealth held in one's hand with which one satisfies one's needs and desires. It encompasses everything God has placed within this earth, all the elements and forces that contribute to the creation of provision. At its core, sustenance is rooted in the very composition of the earth, the elements from which it is formed and the proportions in which they exist. It includes the capacity God has instilled in plants, animals and humans to make use of these elements. In brief, we touch upon just a few aspects of this truth about sustenance. The life of every plant depends on the minuscule amounts of carbon dioxide present in the air, which they absorb in a process as essential as breathing. To explain this complex chemical interaction in the simplest way, the leaves of plants act as lungs, and in the presence of sunlight, they break down the stubborn carbon dioxide into carbon and oxygen. In other words, they release oxygen and retain the carbon, which combines with the hydrogen drawn from the water absorbed by their roots, where water is separated into hydrogen and oxygen. Through a kind of miraculous chemistry, nature transforms these elements into sugar, cellulose, and countless other chemicals, into fruits and flowers. The plants nourish themselves and produce enough surplus to feed every animal on Earth, and at the same time they release the oxygen we breathe, without which life would cease within 5 minutes. Thus, all the forests, grasses, mosses, and even the smallest blades of grass draw their sustenance primarily from carbon and water. Animals, in turn, exhale carbon dioxide, while plants release oxygen. Were this exchange to cease, animal life would eventually deplete all the oxygen, or plants would consume all the carbon dioxide. Once the balance is fully disturbed, plants would wither, and mankind would perish shortly after. It has even been discovered that small amounts of carbon dioxide are essential for the survival of most animals, just as plants require oxygen. And hydrogen must also be included, though we do not breathe it. Without hydrogen there would be no water, and water makes up a significant portion of both plant and animal life, an indispensable element in the existence of all living things. And there is a role for nitrogen in providing sustenance to the earth. Without nitrogen in some form, no plant that provides nourishment could grow. One of the two ways in which nitrogen enters agricultural soil is through the activity of certain bacteria that dwell in the roots of leguminous plants, such as clover, chickpeas, peas, beans, and many others. These bacteria extract nitrogen from the air and convert it into a compound form that the plant can absorb. When the plant dies, some of this compound nitrogen remains in the soil. Another way nitrogen enters the earth is through thunderstorms. Every time lightning flashes through the air, it combines a small amount of oxygen with nitrogen, and rain brings this compound nitrogen to the ground in a form that plants can absorb. You see, they cannot directly absorb pure nitrogen from the air, which makes up about 78% of it, as we have previously mentioned. The hidden provisions within the bowels of the earth, whether solid or liquid minerals, all trace back to the nature of the earth's formation and the conditions surrounding it. We shall not prolong the explanation. Thus, in light of these quick observations, sustenance has a broader meaning than what people usually understand by this term. It is rooted more deeply in the very structure of the earth itself and in the design of the entire universe. When God permits people to partake in it, he is graciously facilitating it for them and making it accessible, just as he grants humans the ability to consume and benefit from it. So walk in the paths thereof and eat of his provision. And this provision is confined to a period preordained in God's knowledge and his divine planning, the time of trial through life and death, and through all that God makes available to humankind in this life. When the period of trial ends, there comes death, and whatever follows it. To him is the return, to him and where else if not to him? For the dominion belongs to his hand, and there is no refuge from him except to him, and he is over all things powerful. And now, while they are in this sense of security upon the back of this docile earth, and amidst this abundant ease granted by God's permission and command, he shakes this tranquil earth beneath their feet, shaking it and stirring it until it quakes, and he stirs the atmosphere around them until it becomes a storm that strikes faces and chests, shaking the earth in their perception and stirring the storm in their imagination, so they awaken from the slumber of security and stability, extend their gaze towards the heavens and the unseen, and attach their hearts to the will of God. Do you feel secure that he who is in the heaven will not cause the earth to swallow you while it quakes? Or do you feel secure that he who is in the heaven will not send against you a storm of stones? Then you will know how severe was my warning. But those before them had also denied the truth, and how terrible was my reproach. And the humans who live upon this docile beast, milking it and gaining their share of God's provision from it, know well how it can transform into a beast that is neither tame nor yielding at times, when God permits it to tremble slightly, and everything upon it shudders or shatters, and everything upon it heaves and quakes, and no strength or scheme can hold it. That happens during earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, which reveal the wild beast hidden within this docile creature, held in check by God's reins so that it does not rage except by measure, nor run wild except for a few counted moments in which all that humankind has built upon its back is shattered or swallowed by the earth when it opens one of its mouths to engulf a portion of it, while it quakes, and humans hold no sway over this matter and can do nothing. And in the terror of earthquakes, volcanoes and sinkholes, they appear like little mice trapped in a cage of fear, where once they were safe, heedless of the greater power holding the reins. Likewise, humans witness the raging, pelting storms that devastate and ruin, scorch and strike, and against them they stand weak and helpless with all their knowledge and all their deeds. When the storm roars and pelts with stones and takes in its path all that is on land, sea or air, humankind stands before it small, frail and weary, until God takes its reins and it becomes gentle and soft. The Qur'an reminds humankind, deceived by the calmness of the beast and the safety of its guide, and lulled by security into forgetting its creator and tamer. It reminds them of these outbursts over which they have no control. The solid earth beneath their feet trembles and quakes, spewing lava and boiling over. The gentle wind around them transforms into a storm that no human-made force on earth can withstand or prevent from destroying. It warns them in a manner that shakes the nerves and unsettles the joints. Then you will know how severe was my warning. And it sets forth examples for them from the realities of humankind and the tales of those who denied in the past. But those before them had also denied the truth, and how terrible was my reproach. The reproach is the denunciation and what follows from it. And indeed God reproached those who denied before them for their disbelief. He asks them, "And how was my reproach?" And they know well how it was, for the traces of destruction and ruin vividly describe how severe this reproach was, and what destruction followed it. The security that God denies to the people is the security that suggests heedlessness of God, his power and his decree. It is not the reassurance in God's mercy and care. This is distinct from that. A believer feels at peace with their sustainer, hoping for his mercy and bounty. But this does not lead to negligence and oblivion, or immersion in the transient pleasures of this world. Rather, it calls them to a constant looking up, modesty before God, caution against his wrath, and vigilance against what is hidden in his decree, with humility and tranquility. Imam Ahmad narrated, with his chain, from Aisha, may God be pleased with her, that she said, I never saw the Messenger of God, peace and blessings be upon him, laughing fully to the extent that I could see his uvula. He would only smile. And she said, when the Messenger of God, peace be upon him, saw a cloud or wind, its effect would be visible on his face. I asked, O Messenger of God, when people see a cloud, they rejoice, hoping that it brings rain, but I notice that when you see it, you display discomfort. He replied, O Aisha, what assurance do I have that it does not contain punishment? A people were punished by the wind, and another people saw the punishment and said, this is a cloud bringing us rain. This is the ever-vigilant awareness of God and his decree, as depicted in the Qur'an's narrative, and it does not conflict with trust in God's mercy and expectation of his bounty. And then it is the return of all apparent causes to the first cause, the acknowledgement that all matters in their entirety belong to him in whose hand is all dominion and who has power over all things. Earthquakes and landslides, volcanic eruptions and tremors, storms and all cosmic forces and natural phenomena are beyond human control. They are solely under the command of God. All that humans say about them are mere theories by which they attempt to explain their occurrence, but they do not partake in bringing them about, nor can they shield themselves from them. All that they build upon the earth can be swept away by a single tremor or a mighty whirlwind, as if it were no more than a plaything made of paper. It would be wiser for them to turn to the creator of this universe, the originator of its laws that govern these phenomena, and the depositor of the forces that manifest themselves in these events. Let them look up to the sky, where it symbolizes loftiness, and remember God in whose hand is all dominion and who has power over all things. Indeed, the human being is strong only to the extent that God grants strength, knowledgeable only to the extent that God bestows knowledge. Yet the reins of this vast universe remain in the hand of its creator, its laws are fashioned by him, and its forces are drawn from his provision. These forces operate according to his laws within the bounds of his decree. What befalls humanity is measured and destined, and what humans learn of it is likewise preordained and known. The events that unfold repeatedly place humanity before the immense forces of the universe, powerless and humbled, reminding them of the creator of these forces and their tamer, and prompting them to seek his help to face them and to harness what is within their reach to harness. When they forget this truth, becoming deluded and deceived by the share of knowledge and the ability to harness some of the forces of the universe that God has granted them, they become a distorted creature, severed from the true knowledge that lifts the spirit to its noble source, sinking into the earth in isolation from the spirit of existence. Meanwhile, the believing soul kneels in the great festival of existence, connecting with the creator of the majestic existence. This is a joy known only to those who have tasted its sweetness when God grants it to them. Yet, the mighty forces of the universe compel humanity to a position of helplessness and surrender, whether they have tasted this sweetness or are deprived of it. For even as they discover and invent and attain whatever measure of strength they may, they still face the forces of the universe in brokenness, small, weak and frail. At times, they may protect themselves from the storm, but the storm continues on its course. They cannot stop it, nor can they stand in its path. At most, their knowledge and efforts enable them to seek shelter from the storm and to retreat from it, sometimes, and at other times it kills them and crushes them beyond their walls and structures. At sea, they are tossed by waves and whirlwinds, and even their largest ships become like a child's toy in the grip of the wind. As for earthquakes and volcanoes, they remain as they have been since the beginning of time and will continue until the end of time. It is only blindness that leads some of the wretched to imagine that humanity stands alone in this existence, or that it is the master of this existence. Human beings are entrusted with the earth by God's permission, endowed with strength, power and knowledge as God wills, and God is their protector and guardian. God is their provider and benefactor. Were God's hand to withdraw from them for a moment, the least of the forces subjugated to them would crush them. The flies, and even creatures smaller than flies, would consume them. But by God's permission and care, they are safeguarded, protected and honoured. Let them know from where they derive this honour and this great favour. Thereafter, he moves them from a touch of warning and threat to a touch of reflection and contemplation. In a scene they see often but seldom ponder, a manifestation of power and an effect of gentle divine management. Do they not see the birds above them, spreading and folding their wings? None holds them up except the most merciful. Indeed, he is, of all things, seeing. This marvel, occurring at every moment, makes us forget, due to its frequent repetition, the power and majesty it signifies. Yet consider the bird as it spreads its wings and extends them, then folds them and brings them together. Whether in the predominant state of spreading or the occasional state of folding, it remains aloft, gliding through the air with ease and grace, performing movements that sometimes seem like an exhibition of the beauty of soaring, diving and rising. Reflect on this scene and follow every type of bird in its particular motions. The eye does not tire of it, nor does the heart grow weary. It is a delight beyond the stimulation of thought and reflection on the marvellous creation of God, in which perfection and beauty are intertwined. The Qur'an draws attention to this captivating scene. Do they not see the birds above them spreading and folding their wings? And then it suggests what lies behind it in terms of planning and providence. None holds them up except the most merciful. The most merciful holds them aloft through the harmonious laws of existence, a wondrous harmony where every small and great thing is considered, where even the cell and the atom are accounted for. Laws that ensure thousands of correspondences on earth, in the air, and in the very formation of the bird, so that this miracle may occur and repeat itself in perfect regularity. The most merciful sustains them with his tireless power, with his ever-present care that never fades. It is he who maintains these laws in constant operation, in harmony and in order. They neither falter nor deviate for a single blink. Until God wills, none holds them up except the most merciful. This direct expression suggests that the hand of the most merciful holds every bird, every wing, both when the bird spreads its wings and when it folds them as it hangs suspended in the sky. Indeed, he is of all things seeing. He sees it and beholds it. He sees its situation and knows its condition. Hence he prepares, coordinates, grants ability, and watches over everything at every moment with the care of the all-knowing, the all-seeing. The act of holding the bird aloft in the air is like holding the creatures on the earth, which is itself flying through space, just as he holds all other celestial bodies in their places. None holding them except God. Yet the Qur'an directs the eyes and hearts of people to every scene they can see and comprehend, touching their hearts with its suggestions and its rhythms. Otherwise, all of God's creation is a miracle, all of it is a marvel, all of it an inspiration, and all of it a rhythm. Each heart and each generation grasps from it what they are able and perceives from it what they see, according to God's will. Then he touches their hearts again, returning them to the scene of fear and dread, of earthquakes and whirlwinds, after taking them on a journey with the secure, soaring bird. Thus, he moves their hearts between various touches, back and forth, as God knows what effect this repetition has on the hearts of his servants. Or who is there that could be an army for you to defend you against the most merciful? The unbelievers are only lost in delusion. After warning them of the threat of the earth's subsidence and the onslaught of a storm from the sky, reminding them of the fate of those who came before, whom God denounced and subsequently destroyed, he returns to ask, who is there that could support you and protect you from God, other than God? Who is there that could shield you from the might of the Most Merciful, except the Most Merciful himself? The unbelievers are only lost in delusion, a delusion that deceives them into thinking they are secure, protected and assured, while in reality they are exposed to the wrath and might of the Most Merciful, without any intercession of faith or deeds to invoke his mercy. Another subtle touch lies in the sustenance they enjoy, while they forget its source and feel no fear of its withdrawal, and then persist in their arrogance and rejection. Or who is there that could provide for you if he withheld his provision? Nay, but they persist in insolence and aversion. All the provision that humans enjoy, as has already been explained, depends upon God's will at its very first causes, in the design of this universe, in the elements of earth and sky. These are causes over which humans have no control, and which are not related to their deeds. They preceded them in existence, exceed them in power, and are capable of obliterating all traces of life whenever God wills. So, who would provide for humankind if he withheld water, or withheld air, or withheld the primary elements from which all things are made? Indeed, the meaning of provision is far more encompassing, ancient, and deeply rooted than what comes to mind at the mere mention of the word. Every small and great aspect of it returns to the power and decree of God, to his sending forth of causes and withholding them whenever he wills. Within this vast, profound concept of provision, all the nearer connotations of the word unfold. Those that humans imagine are of their own making and within their grasp, like labour, creativity and production, all of which are bound to the establishment of the initial causes and elements on one hand, and are dependent upon God's gift to individuals and nations on the other. What breath does a worker draw, and what motion does he make, except by God's provision? God, who created him, granted him ability and power, created the very breath he breathes, and the matter that burns in his body to give him the power of movement. What mental effort does an inventor exert except by the provision of God, who gave him the capacity for thought and creativity? What product does a worker or creator produce except in a material originally made by God, and only through cosmic and human causes that are fundamentally God's provision? Who is there, then, that could provide for you if he withheld his provision? Nay, but they persist in insolence and aversion. This expression paints a picture of a face turned away in contempt, a boastful posture, after affirming the reality of provision, that they are all dependents upon God in this matter. The most despicable of insolence and aversion, of arrogance and disdain, is what comes from dependence towards their provider and sustainer, while they themselves are bereft of everything except what he graciously bestows upon them. Yet they remain insolent, dismissive, and shameless. It is a portrayal of the reality of those souls who turn away from the call of God in tyrannical arrogance and disdainful rejection, forgetting that they are created by God, that they live by his bounty, and that they possess absolutely nothing of their own existence, life, or sustenance. Yet even with this they would accuse the prophet, peace be upon him, and his followers of being misguided, claiming themselves to be on the right path, as their kind does with those who call to God in every age. Therefore he presents to them a vivid depiction of their true state and that of the believers in a living scene that embodies the truth of the matter. Is he who walks prone upon his face better guided, or he who walks upright on a straight path? The one who walks prone on his face might literally be someone crawling on their face, not walking upright on their feet as God created them, or it might be someone who stumbles along their way, falling on their face, only to rise and stumble again. Both scenarios describe a wretched state, filled with hardship, difficulty, and stumbling without guidance, goodness, or reaching the destination. How far is this from the state of one who walks upright, steady along a straight path, with a clear and defined goal before them? The first condition is that of the wretched, unfortunate one, lost from God's path, deprived of his guidance, constantly colliding with his laws and creations. For he chooses a way contrary to theirs, a path opposed to theirs, forever stumbling, forever in toil, forever astray. The second condition is that of the fortunate, blessed one, guided to God, enjoying his guidance, walking according to his laws on the open, well-travelled road taken by the procession of faith, praise, and glorification. A procession that includes all of existence, both living beings and inanimate things. The life of faith is ease, uprightness, and purpose. The life of disbelief is hardship, stumbling, and misguidance. So, which of these two is better guided? Does this even require an answer? It is but a rhetorical question to affirm the evident truth. The question and answer fade away to reveal to the heart this vivid, clear, dynamic scene, a scene of a group walking on their faces, stumbling and falling without aim or direction, and another group, heads held high, steps firm and steady, walking on a straight path toward a defined goal. It is the embodiment of realities, breathing life into images, as the Qur'an often does, expressing through vivid portrayals. And upon the mention of guidance and misguidance, he reminds them of the gifts that God has bestowed upon them, means of guidance and tools of perception, which they have not used to their benefit, nor have they been among the grateful. Say, he it is who brought you into being and endowed you with hearing and sight and hearts, yet little are you grateful. The truth that it is God who created humankind is a truth that presses upon the human mind, affirming itself with a certainty that is hard to deny. For humankind came into existence, a creation loftier, more knowledgeable, and more capable than any other known beings. Yet humankind did not bring itself into existence. Therefore there must be one who is loftier, more knowledgeable, and more capable, who brought it into being. There is no escape from acknowledging a creator, for the very existence of human beings confronts them with this reality. To argue against it is but a petty contention, unworthy of respect. The Qur'an recalls this truth here to remind them, alongside it, of what God has provided to humankind, means of knowledge, and He granted you hearing and sight and hearts. And how did humankind respond to these gifts, the gift of existence, the gift of hearing and sight and hearts? Little are you grateful. Hearing and sight are two great miracles, of which some of their wondrous properties are known. And the hearts, by which the Qur'an refers to the faculty of perception and knowledge, are even more astonishing and extraordinary miracles, of which only a little is known. They are the secret of God in this unique creation. Modern science has made attempts to understand something of the miracles of hearing and sight. Here is a glimpse. The sense of hearing begins with the outer ear, but only God knows where it ends. Science tells us that sound vibrations in the air are conveyed to the ear, which regulates their entry, directing them to the eardrum. The eardrum then transmits them to the labyrinth within the ear. The labyrinth contains a series of canals, some spiral, some semicircular. In the spiral section alone there are 4,000 tiny arches, all connected to the auditory nerve in the head. What is the length and size of each arch? How were these thousands of arches, each with a unique structure, assembled? In what space were they placed, not to mention the other fine undulating bones? All of this exists in a labyrinth so small it can barely be seen. And within the ear are 100,000 auditory cells with nerves ending in delicate hairs, precision and grandeur that baffle the mind. The centre of the sense of sight is the eye, which contains 130 million photoreceptors. These are the ends of the optic nerves. The eye is composed of the sclera, cornea, choroid and retina, not to mention the countless nerves and blood vessels. The retina itself is made up of 9 distinct layers, and the innermost layer consists of rods and cones. It is said that there are 30 million rods and 3 million cones, all arranged in perfect proportion to each other and to the lenses. The lens of your eyes varies in density, focusing all rays to a single point, something that cannot be achieved with any single material, like glass. And as for the hearts, they are the faculty that has made humankind human. They are the power of perception, discernment, and understanding by which humanity was entrusted with dominion over this vast realm and burdened with the responsibility that the heavens, the earth, and the mountains refused to bear, the trust of free will, the self-guided path, and the voluntary adherence to God's straight path. No one knows the true nature of this power, nor its location, whether inside or outside the body. It is God's secret within humankind, known only to Him. Yet despite these immense gifts that have been granted to humankind to fulfill this great trust, they have shown but little gratitude. Little are you grateful. This is something that stirs a sense of shame and embarrassment when reminded of it, as the Qur'an does in this context. It is a reminder to every denier and ingrate who does not give thanks for God's blessings upon him. Even if he were to live solely for gratitude, he would still not fulfill its due. Then he reminds them that God did not create humankind and grant them these faculties in vain, without purpose or objective. It is rather the opportunity of life, a test followed by recompense on the day of judgment. Say, He it is who scattered you across the earth, and unto him you shall be gathered. Scattering implies both multiplication and spread, while gathering implies bringing back together after dispersal throughout the land. These are two movements opposite in concept and effect, corresponding to one another in meaning. One is a scene of multiplying and scattering creatures over the earth, and the other is a scene of gathering them back from it after being spread and scattered. The verse brings both scenes together, allowing the mind to perceive them, as is the way of the Qur'an, reminding humans as they spread across the earth that there is an ultimate purpose they are moving toward, gathering and assembly, and that there is a reality beyond this, beyond the test of life and death. Then it narrates their doubt about this gathering, their suspicion about this promise. And they say, when will this promise be if you are truthful? It is a question of a skeptic filled with doubt, and also a question of a contentious disputant. For knowing the timing of this promise neither advances nor delays anything. It has no relation to its truth, which is that it is the day of recompense following the trial. It makes no difference to them whether it comes tomorrow or after millions of years. What matters is that it is coming, that they will be gathered therein, and that they will be recompensed for what they did in life. Thus, God has not revealed to any of his creation the precise moment of its arrival, for there is no benefit for them in knowing it, nor does this knowledge relate to the nature and reality of that day, nor does it affect the duties with which people are charged in preparation for it. Rather, wisdom and benefit lie in concealing its appointed time from all creation, with God alone possessing the knowledge of that moment beyond all beings. Say, knowledge thereof rests with God alone, and I am but a plain warner. Here the distinction between the Creator and the created becomes vividly apparent. The essence of God is revealed in his uniqueness, without likeness or partner, and all knowledge belongs exclusively to him. All created beings, even the messengers and the angels, stand humbly in their place before the majesty of divine sovereignty. Say, knowledge thereof rests with God alone, and I am but a plain warner. My role is to warn, my task is to clarify, but the knowledge belongs solely to the one who is the possessor of knowledge, without any associate. And while they ask in doubt and are answered with certainty, the Quranic narrative conjures before them the vision of that day which they question as if it has already come, and the appointment they doubt as if it has already arrived, as if they are now face to face with it, and what was destined to happen has indeed happened. But when they see it drawing near, the faces of those who disbelieved will be stricken with grief, and it will be said, "This is what you were calling for." They will see it near, confronting them, present before their eyes, without warning or preparation. Their faces will turn dark with distress, and displeasure will be written upon them. And reproach will be directed at them. "This is what you were calling for. Here it is, present, near. This is what you claimed would never be." This method of presenting what is to come is frequently used in the Qur'an, confronting the state of denial or doubt with a sudden sensory surprise that brings the denier or skeptic face to face with a vivid scene of what they deny or doubt. At the same time, it portrays a truth. This day exists in God's knowledge. The timeline between it and humanity is relevant only from a human perspective. It is a relative matter that does not represent the absolute reality as it is in God's reckoning. If God permitted, they could see it at this very moment as it exists in his knowledge. This sudden transition from the world to the hereafter, from a state of doubt and suspicion to a state of confrontation and surprise, points to a reality that, if God willed, would be revealed to them. At the same time, it depicts this truth in a way that shakes their feelings. They used to anticipate the demise of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and the small band of believers with him, so that they might be rid of them. They advised each other to be patient until his time would come, and then the storm stirred up by his message would subside. Sometimes they would brazenly claim that God would destroy Muhammad and those with him because they were misguided, because they were, according to them, lying about God. So here, in the face of the scene of resurrection and recompense, it is made clear to them that even if their wish were fulfilled, it would not save them from the consequences of disbelief and misguidance. They are thus urged to consider their own situation before the moment they are being confronted with becomes a reality for them. Say, have you considered? If God destroys me and those with me, or bestows his mercy upon us, who will protect the disbelievers from a grievous suffering? This is a question that redirects them to contemplate their own condition and reflect on their own situation, which is more pertinent. What would it benefit them if their wish were to be fulfilled and God destroyed the prophet and those with him? It would not by its nature save them if God were to show mercy to his prophet and his followers. God remains never perishing. He it is who scattered them across the earth, and to him they shall be gathered. But notice how he does not say to them, "Who will protect you from grievous suffering?" nor explicitly state that they are disbelievers. Instead, he hints at the torment awaiting the disbelievers. Who will protect the disbelievers from grievous suffering? This is a wise approach in calling them to the truth, instilling fear in them on one hand, while leaving them room to reconsider their stance on the other. For if he were to confront them by calling them disbelievers, leaving no escape from the grievous torment, they might respond with ignorance and stubbornness, driven by their arrogance in the face of a direct accusation and threat. In certain situations, an indirect approach may have a more profound effect on the soul than a direct one. From this balancing of the two matters, the discussion advances to affirm the stance of the believers toward their sustainer, their trust in him, and their reliance upon him, while hinting at their assurance in their faith and their conviction that the disbelievers are in manifest error. Say, he is the most gracious, in him we have faith, and in him we place our trust. Soon you will know who is in manifest error. The mention of the attribute, the most gracious, here alludes to his deep, vast mercy for his messenger and the believers with him. He will not destroy them as the disbelievers hope or claim. And he directs the prophet, peace be upon him, to highlight the bond that connects them to their sustainer, the most gracious, a bond of faith. In him we have faith and a bond of reliance, and in him we place our trust upon him alone. The expression conveys the closeness between them and the most gracious. And God, glorious be he, favours his messenger and the believers by allowing him to declare this closeness and guides him to proclaim it, as if to say, "Do not fear what the disbelievers say. You and those with you are connected to me, you belong to me, and I have permitted you to express this honour and this station. So say to them, this is a gesture of love and honour from God." Then follows the veiled threat, "Soon you will know who is in manifest error." This, too, is a method that can shake the determination to persist in denial, inviting them to reconsider their position for fear that they themselves might be the ones who are lost, exposed to the torment mentioned earlier. Who will protect the disbelievers from grievous suffering? At the same time, it does not bluntly state that they are indeed in error, so as not to provoke them into stubbornness in the face of direct accusation. This is a method of calling that suits certain states of the soul. Finally, the concluding rhythm of the surah hints at the possibility of worldly punishment before the punishment of the hereafter by depriving them of the very source of life itself, water. Say, have you considered? If your water were to vanish into the earth, who then could bring you clear-flowing water? The water sinking deep into the earth, unreachable to them, and the flowing spring gushing forth abundantly. This is a reminder of something close to their everyday lives, should they still doubt or dismiss the coming of that day. The dominion is in God's hand, and he has power over all things. What if his will were directed towards depriving them of their nearest source of life? Then he leaves them to ponder what would happen should God permit this feared event to occur. Thus, this surah comes to its end, bringing to a close this cascade of rhythms and touches, these journeys and excursions through boundless realms and depths, stretching across distant horizons. Almost every verse in it is like a unique rhythm, or a voyage into a hidden, unseen world, or into a visible reality that hearts and eyes often overlook. It is a vast surah, greater than its size, its space, or the number of its verses. It is as if it were an array of arrows pointing far into the distance, with each arrow almost independently unveiling a new realm. This surah lays down some of the principal foundations of the Islamic worldview. It establishes in the conscience the reality of God's absolute power and his supreme authority. It affirms the reality of life's test through death and existence as a prelude to resurrection and recompense. It reveals the perfection and beauty in God's creation, the truth of his omniscience over all that is secret and whispered, the source of sustenance, and God's preservation of all creatures, his constant presence, exalted is he, with every living being. It articulates a collection of truths upon which a Muslim's understanding of his sustainer is built, and his perception of the universe and its connection to the creator of all existence. This perception forms the foundation of a believer's entire way of life, in relation to his sustainer, to his own self, to others, to all living beings, and to the universe itself, with all its life forms and inanimate things. It shapes his emotions, his conscience, his character, his values, his standards, and his approach to life in all its facets.